that strong, not enough to carry me from everything that's wrong.
I think I threw up on this solo. Yeah, and that, I think, for me, that is the enjoyment. Somebody said that to me the other day about the Beatles thing on TV. Everybody's watched that a couple of months ago. The story about Get Back, I think that's what it was called.
Well, I know it's Peter Jackson that put together. I can't remember.
Yeah, the Peter Jackson thing.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, you know, the equipment that they had, that the Beatles recorded with, we've got better than that today. And in some respects, we do. Mm-hmm. When it comes to computers and capturing audio, of course we do.
Right.
But the microphones in that video, I would give my left arm to have any one of those microphones, right?
Yeah.
Having quality equipment hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember seeing a special not so long ago. A guy in England was trying to reproduce Sun Studios in Nashville, where Elvis Presley did his first recordings. And he did all these vintage compressors, amps, and microphones, and he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the sound that comes out of that is just incredible. It's not so much the capturing, it's more, in those days was more the reproducing. That's where they had the issue, was not so much the capturing part as the putting it out.
There are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
You know, I've been working with recording at home since probably 2000.
Okay.
And it took me until 2010 to figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I'm still trying.
And I'm still figuring it out. Now I'm working on outboard gear, like, you know, the proper preamps, the proper compressors for actually recording a track, and not something that's put in my computer, right? And when I look at the value of that equipment, which hasn't changed, it's still the same equipment they were making. Neumann still makes the same mics they were making, right? And that's where the money is spent on a good studio, not your computer, not a plug-in, right?
Well, the computer can't hide bad recordings.
No, and I mean, no matter how much you sculpt or, you know, fool around with a track, you can always get something out of it. You know, that's the one thing about audio recording. Nothing is ever really wasted. But that being said, if you're not taking the time to capture it well, then, you know, it's the old, forgive the language, but crap in, crap out.
Oh, exactly.
You know, so.
Yeah. So tell me how, what do you get out of teaching? Because, well, my website's the In-Tune Guitar Academy, because my goal is to try to keep guitar playing as a viable thing, because I'm afraid that guitar-based music is disappearing, because with hip-hop, it does, there is guitar playing in it, but it doesn't.
Well, that's why I play country music.
I agree with you, because the country music is where guitar is still prevalent. Like, for example, Brad Paisley is one of the best guitars around.
Yeah, Brad Paisley's amazing. You know,
so back to my question was, what do you get out of teaching young people how to play?
Well, one, every time you teach something, you reiterate it to yourself.
Okay.
So the knowledge that you've gained by teaching is tenfold. So, for example, when I first started teaching the minor pentatonic, like when I was like 16, 17 years old, I would teach someone the minor pentatonic scale. I had no clue what the degree of those scales were. Right?
Right.
Like I know now, 1, flat third, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, sorry, 1.
Yeah.
So when you know the language or the nomenclature of something and you teach it to someone, the understanding of it becomes practical, right? You know, I learned the pentatonic scale, but I didn't know how to move from major to minor until I started teaching it. Right. It forced me to learn things that I should have known. Right.
Oh, I think I'm the same way. I've been playing for years, but there's stuff that I learned now that maybe I should have learned 20, 30 years ago. Man.
Well, it's a very satisfying thing when you're teaching someone and you see the light go on. But what's even more satisfying is when you recognize something that you never noticed before because you've taught it. Right. And I think that's why I teach. I teach because every time I teach, I get better.
The inspiration of the kids.
Well, the inspiration of the kids, but the actual exchange of knowledge. You know, knowledge is good but it's not good unless it's used practically.
Right, exactly.
Right? Like I can tell you how to play pentatonic scale, but if you can't use that in a practical sense, like playing a solo over something with it, then it's pretty much just useless information, right?
Right.
So moving forward with knowledge and understanding to allow you to develop and build your language, your nomenclature, in music, how you play a lead solo or how you express yourself, I think that's the most important thing in teaching. Yes, I'm inspired by kids. Yes, I'm amazed by what they can do, how quickly they learn, how easy it flows through them. There's a whole bunch of things about teaching, but as a teacher, you recognize in yourself the things that you've never actually grasped or learned through teaching, right? So that's why I do it.
So is it private lessons, or do you have a group?
I was a music teacher pre-COVID for the town of Markham.
Okay.
I did programs at...
Which is just north of Toronto.
Just north of Toronto. Yeah. And I taught for many years here in Newmarket, Aurora area at a music store. And I've had my own teaching thing for about 12 years now.
Okay.
I have signs I put out on the street. I got a sign on my car, and I do a home-to-home service.
Okay.
And that's basically how I do it now. I've found that it's more advantageous for me to teach privately than to go through a school, right?
It's more one-on-one. I try to give group lessons for guitar. The young ones, they don't even know how to tune. So like three-quarters of the class I was tuning their guitars, and the bad ones would start freaking out, and I'm trying to tune a guitar and telling them, stop making so much noise.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. So it's teaching more than two kids that never played.
Markham, I'd have 12,
oh my.
13, right?
Yeah,
and so there was a protocol. I'd come in, sit in a chair, and everyone would bring up a guitar one at a time, and I would tune them really quick.
Okay.
And then they would sit down, and then I'd give them a tuning lesson. I'd give them, my first guitar lesson. That's the one thing. No one explained to me how the guitar was built or put together physically. So I didn't know why I was playing a G chord the way a G chord is played. I didn't know why a D chord was being played the way it was played. I couldn't understand where the notes were. I made it more complicated. It was harder. Teaching broke all that down and taught me to explain it in such a way that is understandable, and that made me understand.
Okay, right. Yeah, well, I'm kind of the same way with my online stuff that I do, my YouTube videos. I have to study it first. So by studying it, then I kind of realize, oh, okay, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And then one thing that you mentioned about tuning the guitar is that bad guitars are really hard to tune. Because a previous video I did with my friend Mike Lanteigne, we talked about investing to make your playing better. So invest in a decent guitar. They're a lot easier to tune because the cheap Kmart guitar is awful to tune, and they don't stay in tune.
No, they don't. And a lot of times, too, the setup of the guitar is really what matters, right? This guitar I just got back from a luthier, and he reset the neck because the tension was so such that I couldn't play it. It was just too hard. Couldn't do that, right? It really bothered me. But now that I got it back, it's so easy to play.
Yeah, it sounds really sweet. Action is nice and it's not too low.
You want to try it?
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing is, you don't want your action to be too low either.
Well, you don't get volume from the guitar. I've learned that too. If the action is way too low, you lose volume, it seems. From an acoustic guitar.
Maybe I'll get a Taylor.
Yeah, I
mean, because I need to upgrade my acoustic.
I have a Martin and a Taylor, and they both have a sweet sound.
I honestly prefer Martin. I've tried both, but it's just my preference.
Yeah, the Martin has an aged sound already.
Okay.
You know, like if you get a guitar that's aged, it has that sort of round, warm
It's got more
sound.
mid, I find.
Yeah. I find these have a brighter sound.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree that they're a lot more bright, high end.
Right, so it has that 70s kind of chimey, you know.
Yeah. So you were saying before what makes a good guitar player, what makes a good musician. I guess it's pretty much the same thing, allowing people space.
Well, that's a subjective thing, because I personally don't think I'm a very good musician. I work really hard at it. I know guys that are naturally talented that are so good, right? But I think what makes everybody competent or better is listening, right? Listen when you're playing. I should be the first one to know that. I sometimes don't listen. Like I said earlier, you know, all guitar players go through that verbal diarrhea thing where they got to hear themselves play, right?
Right. But
I find that if you allow the space to play, you get more poignant and more proper for the music that you're playing, right? Think about the song, don't think about yourself.
Right.
And that's a hard thing. I mean, it's hard for me.
Less is more. I mean, it's an overused cliche, but it's for sure in music. And same, it's like cooking. If you make a dish and you put too much spice, it tastes awful.
Well, it does.
Yeah. So playing music, there's a lot of spice that you could put into your music, but if you put too much spice, like I was saying before, the drummers that just want to roll way too much, it overdoes it. It doesn't sound good.
You know, like there are some really good players in Ontario and in Canada that are just so talented. But I find, and it just from a song point of view, a lot of people forget that the music is about the song, not about what you put into the song, right? One example is I had a friend who had a song, brought it to me, and they paid a lot of money to have it recorded. It sounded brilliant, but he had every player that was the greatest in Ontario on it, but there was just too much. It was too much. It was like the song got lost in all of that.
Right. It's chemistry.
Well, I think when we were younger, when we had songs that were on the radio, the reason that they're so memorable is because the songs were poignant and to the point for that song. You know, Back in Black is Back in Black because it's simple and it's to the point. Yeah. Right?
Well, AC/DC, I never considered them super great musicians, but they sound amazing together.
Well, and their hooks are memorable.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody everybody knows those hooks, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Though I think that's what's lost in music today. Right? They mill it out so fast now that they forget that you've got to create an experience with your music, right? And create something that's unique from the next guy. And I find that with a lot of music. For example, grunge, how many grunge bands sound the same from Seattle? They all did.
Well, they all tried to sound like Nirvana.
Right, Nirvana, Mudhoney, the list of them goes on. Yeah. It's the same with metal, it's the same with country, it's the same with all music. And I think that what causes the downfall to certain types of music or our music is that we've forgotten that we have to be individuals, and now we're looking at appeasing the masses instead of looking at the song for itself and making something original. And I think that's, for me, is what I'm trying to do. It's a hard thing to do. Whether you like our music or you don't like our music, I want everyone to know the most important thing to me is to make something original that is me.
And that you care about.
Right. I don't want to be pretending to be anybody else.
Right.
Right. Like I'd love to be Brett Mason, but I'm not. Right. So be yourself. Do what that matters to you.
Okay. Well, I think we've had a really good interview. I thank you for your time. It's been amazing. You've shared some very amazing insights.
Thank you.
It was very much a great experience. So thanks for joining me on the Intune Guitar Academy, and thanks to our guest, Mike Lanteigne, and go out and listen to Jonnson's Creek. Oh, one question I wanted to ask you that I forgot. Where did the name come from?
Okay, so if you listen to the song The Water,
okay,
there's an actual fictitious place in that song called Jonnson's Creek.
And The Water's by the Brothers Osborne?
No, that's by us.
So yours.
So on our first release, it's called The Water. And Glenn wrote the lyrics to that song and that song before I had met him. And it is absolutely my favorite song because of the story, because of the mood, and it's just such a good song.
It's on their
website. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I play guitar on it, and I put the music together, but the song is Glenn's, and it is where the name came from. And when I met Glenn, I want to call the band Jonnson's Creek, and I said, well, there's too many Creek bands out there. And then he played me The Water and explained why he wanted to use that name, and it's why we got the name.
So it's just totally made up? Or?
Totally made up.
I thought it was somebody's uncle or something.
No, it's
they used to play in the country.
It's a fictitious place in one of our songs.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, thanks again for
Great, thank you,
for your
Frank.
time, and thanks for joining me on the In Tune Guitar Academy. Go out there, have fun while you do learn and practice.
Oh, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, for sure.
JonsonsCreekBand.com. We're on all socials. If you want to check us out, that would be great.
And you got a song on the radio too.
Oh, we have a new song on the radio called Burn It Up. And recently we released some more too. So
Okay.
there's more coming out. And we've got more recording.
Well, congratulations for the song on the radio. And
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure that fills a lot of pride, fills you with pride.
Oh, I still don't believe it. I know there are more people deserving or more talented. I just so happy that I did something with it. You know?
Well,
I
what
did
impresses
something
me
with
the
it.
most is your humility. You're just so humble. You're an amazing guitar player, but you're humble at the same time.
Well, I think that as soon as you think you know everything, you stop learning.
Yep, definitely.
You know, and it's about learning, even life, right?
Yeah, arrogance is the death of progress.
Oh, it is. It is definitely the death of progress, for sure.
That's one of my articles on my website.
That's right. Actually, I've read more of your stuff than I have watched.
Okay.
I've read your articles.
All right.
Actually, and I can't remember the name of the first article I read, but it was so good. I think I even commented on it.
Okay.
On your page.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh no, Frank. I appreciate you coming here, taking the time. I'm sure there's more people deserving, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time. As well. There you go.
We're all appreciative.
Brotherly love here.
Yeah, right on.
All right. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you, Frank.